Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout-out to...
Something else.
Something else, Daddy.
This is Nicole Matara, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Aria.
And welcome to episode number 087 of Something Else. Feast your hair holes on this week's episode as we take a look at both Mid-South Wrestling and World Class Championship Wrestling from April 2nd, 1983. My name is Arya, and welcome to the show. So it is, in fact, WrestleMania weekend. If you're listening to the dulcet tones of my voice, you know, WrestleMania is this Saturday and Sunday from Philadelphia. If you are going to the shows, have a safe travel. I hope you enjoy the trip. I hope you enjoy the shows. You know, for better and worse, wrestling is just super fucking fun. And I've been to WrestleMania 7 times, supposed to go 8 times, but then this teeny tiny little global pandemic prevented that. But so I'm still not sure if I'm going, believe it or not. I do have a hotel room booked. I've just, been contemplating going. I'm probably, legitimately, I'm probably going to wake up Friday morning and decide from there. Because I can still cancel my hotel room up to that point. So, we'll just let it go and see what happens, I guess. By the way, check out our YouTube page, tinyurl.com/somethingelse-YouTube. It not only gets the Mid-South Wrestling Show, not only do you get World Class here on Something Else, you get the video version, which, no, is not my ugly mug. You instead get to see the actual episode of Mid-South Wrestling from April 2nd, 1983. And you get to watch the entire Smoky Mountain Wrestling episodes over on the Smoky Mountain Rewatch Along project. Now, World Class, unfortunately, I don't have access to, the World Class shows in the same location I normally get everything from. So, unfortunately, I can't post that because the Peacock, when you download the stuff from Peacock, the file size is just way too big, and thus would make, trying to upload them on YouTube just insane. So, World Class is great. Go spend $5 and check out Peacock. But from here, let's go to Mid-South Wrestling. Kick things off here in Mid-South, April 2nd, 1983. Not from the Irish O'Neill Boys Club in Shreveport, Louisiana, from a studio. Because this week's episode is all about the North American title tournament that was held recently. And let's go to Bill Watts, who is by himself this week, and he's going to introduce the show.
Wrestling fans, Cowboy Bill Watts standing in for Boyd Pierce. Many of you know that on March the 21st, there was a very important one-night tournament held in New Orleans. The whole emphasis was the North American title. That belt, which I was fortunate enough to get to defend for 7 years, the most prestigious regional title in the world today. Because of the disappearance of Stagger Lee, the North American title has been vacant. On March 21st in New Orleans, a one-night sudden death tournament for the North American title plus $10,000 was held with 13 top professional wrestlers. There were 4 bouts in the first round with 5 byes. The men that drew the first round byes were the Junkyard Dog and Ted DiBiase because they were former champions. Kamala, the Ugandan warrior, because he was a #1 contender. Hacksaw Dugan because he is a Louisiana champion. And the Black Ninja drew the wild card. The 8 men in the first 4 matches were Mr. Olympia versus Marty Lundy, Mr. Wrestling 2 versus Wild Bill Irwin, Hacksaw Butch Reed versus Super Destroyer, Matt Bourne against Tito Santana. However, we're going to show you the final match of the evening, the 12th match. It's a very controversial match for the title because Mr. Olympia, the former tag partner of the Junkyard Dog, ends up wrestling the Dog for the championship. Let's watch what happened March the 21st at the Downtown Municipal Auditorium in front of a capacity crowd as you see Mr. Olympia entering the ring.
Sorry about that. I forgot to unmute myself. So this is a weirdly broadcast episode because, spoiler, this entire show, I guess there's one exception. We'll get to that here in a few minutes. But the entire show is basically the North American title tournament. So in theory, you would want to end the show with the finals and the aftermath. But they're starting with the finals and the aftermath, which, I guess whatever floats your boat. It's certainly not, me, running the show, but I think that starting with the finals and then airing the preliminary bouts is a little weird and backwards, but whatever. So Watts just explains what we've had up until now, that Stagger Lee was North American champion, and then he just disappeared. And he disappeared, left the North American title, he mailed it in, and walked away. Now, we have a 13-man tournament, and it was hurting my head trying to figure out how the hell, it even worked here, because you have 5 people getting buys, but it's not even 5 people getting buys, it's 4 people getting buys, because I thought, the wild card is the 5th person to get the buy. Who the fuck was a wild card? What the fuck is a wild card? I don't know. Like, how the hell do you get a 13-man tournament with 5 buys and 4 first-round matches? Because then you end up with 9 people after the first round. And they do, we'll get to the booking of it, but it was driving me crazy trying to figure this shit out here. And I don't say it's not even worth my time trying to remember or trying to figure it out, but it's like, motherfucker, like, somebody's getting screwed here with, this bracketing. Anyway, so we go straight away to our final match of the tournament, Junkyard Dog versus Mr. Olympia. So far in the tournament, Junkyard Dog has beaten Ted DiBiase and Kendo Nagasaki, thank God, in the earlier rounds. Olympia beat Marty Lundy in the first round. And then, due to a double disqualification between Kamala and Mr. Wrestling 2, Olympia got a bye and then beat Butch Reed in the semifinals. So here we are with the finals. Both men have wrestled twice. Arguably, you could say Mr. Olympia has had the easier road since his first match was against, Marty Lundy, while Junkyard Dog had to wrestle Ted DiBiase first. They both had in theory, a tough opponent in the semifinals. But that's where we got to where we are. Now, Dog tries to shake Olympia's hand, but Olympia refused it, and he goes to the back, and he brings out his new financial advisor, General Skandor Akbar, who we find out not only, represents Mr. Olympia, also now represents the Black Ninja. Apparently, the impetus to this was Olympia felt that he was the premier masked man and did not appreciate Mr. Wrestling 2 randomly showing up last year. Anyway, the match starts with Dog dragging Akbar into the ring and giving him the thump, which knocks out referee Jerry Usher. A second referee ran in, and he gets knocked out immediately. The Black Ninja runs in and knocks out Dog with a super kick, and Olympia slaps on the sleeper while Ninja ran away. Now, here's where we get a screwy finish here. So, Olympia has the sleeper on. Junkyard Dog is down, but Junkyard Dog is on his stomach. Referee Jerry Usher gets up and, confused or whatever, he counts the pin. Dog is face down, stomach down, and he counts the pin and awards the match and the title to Mr. Olympia. Mr. Olympia has sold his soul for the North American title. Well, there are some issues here with what we just saw, not the least of which was Dog was pinned on his stomach. And no matter how you look at it, that it's far from the appropriate response to somebody being in a sleeper hold. And anyway, Bill Watts has some news for us.
Craig Soley, the son of Gordon Soley, shot this tape, this film. When he edited it and got it all together, the directors of Mid-South, Charlie Lay, chairman of the board, called a meeting. They asked me to fly to Florida, to Tampa, to be with them in this meeting, ask my opinion as a former North American champion. I don't try to enter in, but I did have to say one thing, that Mid-South, I felt, would be very wrong to honor Mr. Olympia as the champion, due to the two things. First of all, that the Dog's shoulders were not pinned, and that's what the count was by a stunned official. Secondly, that Mr. Olympia had let him go and stood up, therefore he would have deserved a 10 count to get to his feet. And I thought Mid-South would be wrong, and I voiced my opinion, and I want to thank Charlie Lay and the board of directors. They echoed my feelings, and they have held up that title. The North American title is held up. But first, let's go a little bit further. Go to the dressing room where Greg Soley went into the dressing room and interviewed the new champion and his new financial advisor.
And I present the North American title to a very, very deserving super heavyweight. And you know, I couldn't believe it when you called. I couldn't believe it was you. I thought I was hearing things. But you know, you were right about the Junkyard Dog. When Wrestling 2 came along, he dropped you just like yesterday's garbage. And what did you get for paying your dues? When Mr. Wrestling caused you to leave Mid-South, you left like a man. But the Junkyard Dog, he comes back like Stagger Lee, like the real dog he is. Well, here is it. This is a North American title right now. And this man vanquished 11 other super heavyweights right here in New Orleans for this coveted title, which means more than any heavyweight title across the world. A North American champion.
You know, Akbar, you know, it's funny because, you know, I'm a man of my word. They can't say I'm not a man of my word. Because for 60 days, I left for 60 days. Why? Because I took somebody's place like Wrestling 2. You're right, I was pushed aside like yesterday in headlines. When Wrestling 2 come in, all you can hear is people start to like it. Two. And where was Olympia? Pushed him to the side. But I'm a man of my word. I got in there, I took his place, and I left for 60 days. But you know what did Dog do? Did Dog leave? No, I came back to Stagger Lee. That's when I lost respect to you, Dog. Yeah, I was a man of my word, but what'd you do? You put a hood on and come back to Stagger Lee. But not me. I waited my 60 days, and for Wrestling 2, boy, you almost blew a perfect plan because I had it all mapped out. And you found a suitcase, but you didn't get it done because there it is, the North American title. And it was very well.
Where's the shoe at now, Dog?
That's right.
It's on this book. It's on this book.
$10,000 for the 60 days that I lost.
Mr. Olympia talking about being a man of his word, about integrity. I want to say one thing. I appreciate Mid-South's integrity because they have held up the North American title. They're going to settle that issue Saturday, April the 16th in the Superdome Extravaganza. They're going to change some matches that were planned for that big card, and one of the key matches will be for the North American title plus the $10,000, Junkyard Dog versus Mr. Olympia. At least this time, Junkyard Dog is totally forewarned, and Mr. Wrestling 2 was right, and Mr. Olympia, you've sold your soul to Skandor Akbar. That doesn't negate the danger of the type of individual you are, but at least Dog will have a fighting chance. We'll be back with King Kong Bundy, 420 pounds of Devastation Incorporated, after these words from Mid-South Wrestling.
Okay. So we come back, and I didn't actually tell you everything you were going to listen to, but hey, you heard what you needed to hear there. So Bill talks about how the tape was taken to Charlie Lay, the president of Mid-South Sports, who had Bill Watts fly from Oklahoma to Florida to ask his opinion, because apparently you cannot just ask somebody's opinion over the phone. You need to fly the poor motherfucker to Florida to do that instead. So Watts said that Mid-South would be very wrong to uphold the decision due to Dog being on his stomach and then not doing a 10-count knockout finish and, doing the pinfall with him on his stomach instead. Now, Charlie Lay agreed to this, and the North American title, which has been vacant since the end of January, is going to continue to be vacant. The North American title has been held up. And this is where it gets weird, because you think they would air the Olympia interview first and then this part, but whatever. So the title's vacant, but we're going to go to Olympia for a post-match promo where he's excited because he's the champion. He's got the belt. He's going to get the $10,000 that the winner of the tournament gets. And he's there with General Skandor Akbar. Akbar, the point of this was, and we've mentioned this before, when Olympia lost his Loser Leaves Town for 60 Days match, he manned up and left town for 60 days. He didn't pretend to be somebody else, and try to pull the wool over, any of the heel's eyes. He was a man of his word. He took a match knowing the risk, knowing what would happen if he lost. He lost, he left. He went without pay for 60 days because you don't wrestle, you don't get paid. And then, but, Junkyard Dog, not a man of his word. He lost his match and immediately came back as Stagger Lee, showing he's not a man of his word. Olympia felt like he was pushed to the side between that and Mr. Wrestling 2. He lost respect for the dog. And, yeah, they're excited to be North American champion, the most prestigious regional title in the entire world. And you could tell that kind of killed Watts to say the most prestigious regional title, because they were never going to get the world title. Spoiler alert. And, it's funny because I still believe that they were trying to groom Dog for the world title, but just he was like, honestly, Dog was never going to get it. But, so that's what's going on here. And, but we go back to Watts, who says, while he doesn't appreciate Mr. Olympia's integrity, he doesn't appreciate Mid-South's integrity. And they are booking Junkyard Dog versus Mr. Olympia on April 16th at the Superdome for not only the North American title, but also the $10,000 that the winner of the tournament gets. So from here, we go to the only live match we're going to have on the show. The only, live from the whatchamacallit, oh my God, the Irish McNeil Boys Club in Shreveport, Louisiana. We go to King Kong Bundy versus Ron Ellis, and King Kong Bundy is mad.
Red corner at 430 pounds.
Rachel, what is this? What is this? I was told I was going to wrestle Andre the Giant, and you tell me I'm going to wrestle this thing here? I'm King Kong Bundy, 6'4", 420 pounds of muscle and bone, and you want me to wrestle this piece of garbage? Devastation Incorporated doesn't wrestle opponents like this. These Mid-South promoters told me I was going to wrestle Andre the Giant, and I'm going to wrestle him, and I'm going to make him crawl. And I want to say something else. When I beat a man, there ain't going to be no 3 count. It's going to be a 5 count, because I don't want no doubt in anybody's mind. I ain't wrestling him.
Well, the contract...
Class. I can't wrestle that man. I'm King Kong Bundy. I ain't wrestling that man, I'll tell you that.
The man's not here to wrestle. You gonna wrestle the man?
I ain't wrestling, I just told you that.
All right, then you can go back to the dressing room. We'll give this man
I'll
the
go
win.
back to the dressing room when I'm ready to go back. I got a few things to say. I ain't wrestling that man.
Hey, I'm not gonna take this stuff. Ring the bell. Ring the bell. Well, there you have it. You got a 10 count. You got
Devastation Incorporated. I'm an international wrestler.
You got a 10 count. If you don't get in here and start wrestling, I'm gonna give him the
I
match.
ain't wrestling that boy.
Referee Alfred Neely has given a...
Let me be the first to congratulate him on a win over the great King Kong Bundy.
And the man that he's congratulating, of course, is 250-pound Ron Ellis.
All right. So Bundy's upset because here in his debut in Mid-South, he's not wrestling Andre the Giant. He's wrestling Ron Ellis, who he calls a piece of garbage. Now, interestingly enough, for those of you who listen to our world-class reviews, they keep talking about, Devastation Incorporated but they don't really go into detail about what it is, and that's of course, the name of Akbar's stable in World Class. They, without really going into detail, they basically are telling you that that's going to be his nickname, is Devastation Incorporated, which I it actually makes for a pretty cool nickname. But yeah, it's kind of weird though if you are watching and you just hear that. But also, they point out that Bundy says he only wins matches with a 5 count. He refuses to wrestle Ellis and is gonna leave, but instead he sticks around because why the hell wouldn't he just stick around and beat Ron Ellis? And sure enough, he beats Ron Ellis handily and beat him quickly. Hit the avalanche, got the 5 count, and King Kong Bundy is 1-0 in Mid-South Wrestling. We go back to the North American title tournament, and the rest of this show is Watts just going through every match. And we do get some highlights, some stuff joined in progress, beginning with Tito Santana versus Matt Bourne. Tito actually spends 3 months wrestling in Mid-South, Georgia, and the WWF at the same time, which I gotta tell you, that's something you're not gonna see much of in the future, especially when one of them is WWF. It's not, like Kamala was wrestling all over the place at the same time, but it's not the same. But this is basically the Forbidden Door before the Forbidden Door. Tito runs into Bourne's foot, and then he crashes into referee Jerry Usher. That poor guy's had a rough night so far. Bourne misses bombs away. Tito uses an atomic drop and pinned him after a bridge and a spinning toe hold. Or a bridge after a spinning toe hold. So basically he does the spinning toe hold and then leans backwards in a bridge to get the pin. Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus Hacksaw Butch Reed. Yes, after calling him Bruce Reed for a month before he's arrived, Butch Reed is now here as Butch Reed. They note that Reed had defeated the Super Destroyer in the first round while Duggan had a bye. Reed was obviously being protected and was going to be used as someone here. He does a lot more shucking and jiving than you'd ever see him do in the WWF or WCW. And, I mentioned before, Watts does solo commentary by himself the entire show. And he talks about the upcoming Superdome, main event with Olympia and Junkyard Dog. And it's like, it's anticlimactic. And I mentioned this earlier when they aired the final match first. It's anticlimactic afterwards to then watch the preliminary rounds because now it's just, hey, I do enjoy watching good wrestling. And sure enough, this show was full of, mostly good wrestling. But it just could have been, I felt it could have just been edited together better. We'll just say that. Anyway, Reed did a press slam and won with a flying body tackle. The fans have embraced Butch Reed on day 1. Tito Santana versus the Black Ninja Kendo Nagasaki. Since you already know Nagasaki does the job to Junkyard Dog, you already know the results here. Tito did not allow Kendo to remove his accoutrements before attacking him. This was for the better. After hitting a drop kick, Tito yanks off his mask, but when the referee grabbed the mask from Tito, Ninja kicked Tito, spewed the palmolive all over Tito's face. Tito rolls to the floor and is counted out. So Tito doesn't get pinned, and the Black Ninja moves on to bigger and better things. Mr. Olympia versus Hacksaw Butch Reed in what is technically our last new match of the show. Olympia, who we mentioned earlier so far, has only had to wrestle Marty Lundy. He does shake Butch Reed's hand before the match, showing what a kind, gentlemanly wrestler he is. What a good Christian athlete he is. Reed out-wrestled Olympia early, and Olympia was still showing what a great man he is by shaking Reed's hand again. Reed press-slammed Olympia for a 2 count. Olympia rolled Reed up and got kicked into referee Jerry Usher. Motherfucker's been bumped 3 times already tonight. Outred Hacksaw Jim Duggan, who had his helmet on. He speared Reed. Olympia got up, slapped on the sleeper, Jerry Usher woke up and called it properly, and Mr. Olympia wins. I'll tell you what, after watching fucking Jerry Usher get bumped every which way but Sunday on this show, suddenly I completely understand how he fucked up that main event finish. Because Jesus Christ, that poor guy got attacked in every fucking match. Uh, and the show ends by them actually replaying the finals of the tournament, which the whole thing's just, like I said, the whole thing's just really fucking weird. Like, the show gets bookended with the finals, and then everything else gets smushed in between. Um, so that does it for Mid South. I should point out that last week's midget match that was taped to air this week did not air again. But so the North American title is still vacant, and I kind of, this is where it gets weird when it comes to baiting and switching an audience. And it's in New Orleans. Obviously, the Superdome was in New Orleans. You built up for a month this one night tournament, and you get a pretty good little audience there in the downtown Municipal Auditorium in New Orleans. And it ends up just being, a bait and switch, because at the end of the day, the title's still vacant, and you're making people pay for another match between the two of them, or another match to determine the new North American champion. And I don't know, it's kind of weird, and I guess you can get away with it to an extent since it's the dog that got fucked over in the end. It wasn't, Mr. Olympia, it wasn't like Dog won the belt and then by sheer bullshit they took the belt from him, and so the fans are pissed off. It's like the fans, they got their finish. They weren't happy with the finish, obviously, because they'd want Dog to win. But, hey, it turns out he didn't really lose. He got screwed in the end. And now, hey, look, Dog's going to have a chance at the belt and the Superdome. Let's go see how that plays out. So I guess if you're going to do a screw job finish, it was the better way to do it. So it was a unique episode of Mid-South. We, a lot more big name matches than usual, even though, none of them were really, I don't know what the hell I'm trying to say here. None of them were like real barn burners, and technically the only match we saw in full was the finals, which lasted, all of 90 seconds. Especially with 13 matches, and some people wrestling 3 and 4 times. Actually, no one wrestled 4 times, but you had a couple people wrestling 3 times. It's like you're not going to get, a whole bunch of 20-minute matches, especially when you got Junkyard Dog in there, because he sure as hell isn't going to go 20 minutes with anybody, much less 20 minutes, multiple times in a night. So, I mean, the show was still fun. The show was still good, and gave you, at the end of the day, it also gave you like an idea of like, hey, look how fun it is to go to a live show. Look at these happenings that are going on. Look at these great matches that you could see by going to see Mid-South Wrestling live. And yeah, so that's going to do it for Mid-South this week. All right, moving on here to World Class Championship Wrestling, also April 2nd, 1983, from the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas. Let's go to our intro with Bill Mercer talking about today's show.
Welcome to World Class Championship Wrestling from the Sportatorium in downtown Dallas, Texas. I'm Bill Mercer. Great to have you with us. We've got a tremendous card on World Class Championship Wrestling. The Iceman King Parsons. Some of the people are saying, well, he hasn't beaten anybody yet. But tonight, if he wins this one, they'll be saying, hey, he is somebody, because he is taking on the Great Kabuki. Kabuki coming back after being injured about 6 weeks ago. And he's ready again. So is the Iceman. David Von Erich battles one of the Freebirds, Buddy Roberts. And David wants, 1/3 is better than all 3. So he'll take that one right. And then we are going to have Billy the Kid and Little Coco, the midgets. And this is a great crowd pleaser. A lot of youngsters will love this one. It's a tremendous world-class championship wrestling. Iceman and Kabuki, David Von Erich and Buddy Roberts. And we'll be back with our first match, Billy the Kid and Little Coco, next on World-Class Championship Wrestling.
What is it with the mini wrestlers? Because, we've had this running joke now in World Class or not World Class, but on Mid South for a few weeks, and are going to continue having it for a few more weeks. With the match, the tag team match with the mini wrestlers, and now we have this one here. We have a mini match booked for this week. And, plus we're going to have Iceman King Parsons versus the Great Kabuki, who was injured 6 weeks ago, but is now coming back. His first big match today against Iceman Parsons. And they note that Iceman Parsons, while he did defeat Buddy Roberts, the argument is that he hasn't wrestled anybody. He hasn't had any, important matches yet. And he's getting one here in the form of the Great Kabuki. And that's going to be a huge match. Plus, we're going to have David Von Erich versus Buddy Roberts. And then, of course, we have our opening match, Little Coco versus Billy the Kid. Now, a disclaimer. What these two are doing nowadays, they've got a few different names. They're called minis. I've seen micro wrestling. I've seen dwarf wrestling listed. At the time, it was called midget wrestling. That was the accepted terminology for it. And, it's like with anything else. It's like, there's shit happening right now that 10 years from now, people are going to go, man, can you believe in 2024 they did this, that, and the other thing? I'm sorry, things change, sensitivities change. We do become a more accepting and open environment, and we learn that different terminology doesn't always work, and that's what's happening here. So, moving on to the match, Mark Lawrence, of course, the ring announcer, he's introducing the two of them, and he forgets Billy the Kid's name for a second, and we had the dramatic pause of all dramatic pauses, waiting for Mark to remember it. Lance Storm would have been impressed by the dramatic pause. And yes, the bell rings, and we officially get the match here in World Class before the promoted one in Mid-South. Now, the funny thing is, you're used to seeing, a little person match, and it's very comedic. They do a lot of funny spots with the referee and everything like that. Billy the Kid's offense was a lot more serious than you normally see in this type of match. Coco, however, took care of all the comedy spots you would normally associate with it. At one point, we got an airplane spin where both men were so dizzy afterwards that when they went to lock back up, they couldn't find one another and fell flat on their face. Coco won with a roll-up, and Billy the Kid channeled his inner heel Daniel Bryan and screamed, "No! No! No!" As Billy the Kid is starting to walk away, he is stormed by a tall, bald man who turns out to be Killer Karl Krupp. Killer Karl Krupp did not want to wait for the commercial break as he storms right out. And instead of getting a commercial break, we're going right to the ring for this match, which is Killer Karl Krupp versus Mike Reed. Krupp goose-stepped and did the Nazi see Kyle salute during his introduction. Mercer amused himself during this match, thinking about the type of valet that Krupp would have if he had one, saying she wouldn't be anything like Sunshine. How do you know this, Bill? An ugly Nazi in 1983 can't get a pretty blonde woman as a valet? Oh well. Mercer says, by the way, that goose-stepping was not in vogue anymore. Well, he's got a point. Can't say it is. Krupp choked Reed, but apparently doesn't understand the rules, as instead of waiting for the 4 count before breaking, he breaks it at 2. Well, I guess at the end of the day, he knows more than I do, as he won with a stomp. Yes, a stomp. If you can get it over, anything can be a finish, right? So let's go to Bill Mercer, who's got the Freebirds for a promo.
Fabulous Freebirds, Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy, and Buddy Roberts. Well, gentlemen, I understand you have a complaint about the fans here. What's the matter?
Well, first of all, nobody treats us with respect like we should be. I mean, we are the toast of the coast, the sensation of the nation, baby. Have you ever seen record crowds like this before? All right. That proves my point. It's something we've done from coast to coast. We've sold out the Omni. We've sold out the Superdome. We've sold out Reunion. You know why? Because Fantasia will amaze you. And what do we get? We get Go Home Freebirds. Go Home Freebirds. Hey, we would like nothing better to go home, man. I just talked to my old lady on the phone. She said, hey, you may be the hottest looking thing walking, but it ain't doing me no good if you're out there. She said, I need some roses. I need some romance. I need some candlelight, and I need some slow dance. And I said, well, Mama, you hold the phone because me and Terry and Buddy are getting a little bit tired of staying around here. You know, we got that world title, and that goes all over the country. And the Von Erichs, as far as we're concerned, are way down the ladder now in contenders. Go Home Freebirds. Who could send us home? There's nobody here that can send us home, is there, Terry?
That's right. And
you have a red yellow rose, right?
Since we're going to stay, you know, this is a yellow rose, and this is the rose that represents Texas. This is Texas's rose right here, and I just want to show you how we're going to take Texas just a little bit at a time. You know what I mean?
Took it all at a time.
Yeah, that's more like it. All at once, man. You know, just take it all, and we got it all. That's right. It's none of your business. And we have already got it all. We got the world 6-man titles. We got the American tag team titles. And the American single title should be ours, too.
Buddy, final word, just a few seconds.
One little thing. The reason the people in Texas want us to go home is because we make the Von Erichs look so bad.
All right. Thank you, Freebirds. The fabulous Freebirds. Stick around, okay? We'll be right back.
Very cut and dry, very meat and potatoes promo here. You know, Michael Hayes, he's mad at the fans. They got a complaint about the fans. You know, they're here. They're nice enough to sell out the Omni. They're nice enough to sell out Reunion Arena, the Superdome, and the fans just chant, "Go home, Freebirds! Go home, Freebirds!" And Hayes says, you know, they'd love to go home. Unfortunately, he's got a woman, and the woman, you know, wants nice things, and you know, in order to have nice things, they gotta, you know, be here, and they gotta, you know, make some money in order to earn those nice things for his old lady. As what's it? Buddy Roberts, you know, points out that, you know, the fans only dislike them because they make the Von Erichs look bad, and Cordy rips up a yellow rose. We then get the match between David Von Erich and Buddy Roberts. So in case you're curious, you know, this was, of course, taped the same night as last week's tag team match. And in case you had any doubt about that, Buddy is wearing the same green and gold tights that he wore last week while standing in the corner. They announced that next week we're going to get that match that talked about last week, Ric Flair versus Kevin Von Erich for the world title. And I know I say this every week, but the fans do love them some Von Erichs, and they hate them some Freebirds. This match was so basic, but it's so hard to complain. And I've mentioned this before, and this thing with World Class, it's like, when you give the fans what they want, you know, it's okay to be basic. And yeah, it might be boring to some extent to watch with 2024 eyes, because you're not doing a lot. They're not doing 50 near falls. They're not doing, you know, a whole lot of, you know, crazy flips and dives and, you know, everything else, you know, but that's not what these fans wanted. These fans wanted what they're getting, and why do more than you need to? Call it laziness, call it what you want. It, you know, it's perseverance. It's trying to set up having a longer career. And in theory, you know, in a perfect world, we'd have had a lot of long careers out of this, but you know, shit happens. But Roberts comes off the middle rope and jumps into a stomach claw. To be perfectly honest, the way it was set up, it looked like a penis claw, but apparently David's hand did not go quite that low. It was close, though. He definitely had a handful of tights while giving the stomach claw. Now, here's the issue with the tremendous production of World Class. And we've talked about, you know, it's standard definition, but the audio is just out of this world. And the answer as to why no one we finally got the answers to why no one else ever put a microphone in the ring, because you can hear Buddy talking to David and calling spots while they're in a chin lock. And you couldn't quite make out what they were saying, and I'm sure, somebody who's more of an audiophile than I am could take it and, remove the crowd noise and, bring up the noise of just Buddy Roberts talking to David. But it's like, I'm not going to sit here and do that. But that's exactly what's happening. And ultimately it's a kayfabe killer. Now you could cover it up and say Buddy was talking trash, but it was obviously more than just that. Buddy goes for a bulldog, but David threw him off and won with a knee left. We noticed that every time somebody does a job for the Freebirds, at least in the month we've been watching this, it's always Buddy. Then if that wasn't enough, when Buddy leaves the ring, he slips on the ring steps coming out and threw a tremendous temper tantrum, beating up the steps, which was the Freebirds' only win of the night. So David exits the ring and runs right into Bill Mercer, who doesn't have his normal microphone. He has the microphone they actually use to pick up the audio of the ring. So it's going to make it a little warped, but hey, it's them, not me.
Big win. You beat a Freebird.
Big Mike for a big win, yeah. Anytime you beat a Freebird, you got to be in top condition and all the way ready. As far as the family goes, we can't wait to get the Freebirds all together in the ring, because we know what we're going to do. We're going to beat them just like I beat Buddy Roberts.
And that's a six-man tag team.
Now on the single, I want Jim Garvin. My heart says Jim Garvin, and I want my Texas title back, and I'm going to get it.
Thank you, David Von Erich. We've got coming up the Iceman and the Great Kabuki on World Class Championship Wrestling.
Now, I say this, stuff like this is what makes Mid-South great, because, we have the overarching feud of the Freebirds versus the Von Erichs. But Fritz knew that you couldn't just do this nonstop. You couldn't just have every single week be a match between the Freebirds and the Von Erichs, because it will quickly die off on you. So he had other people involved. So you get David versus Garvin, and now it's like, before the feud was just kind of, okay, the guy wants a Texas title shot, or else he won't wrestle on TV. Okay, I'll give it to him. But now Garvin's got the belt, and now David wants the fucking belt, and now he's going to get after this little fucking asshole and try to get the belt back. And you also have Kevin wanting the world titles. He's got Flair. And then you have Iceman feuding with the Freebirds. So you're not burning this feud out while it's still going strong. And plus, it puts over one of those things that just never gets really, it's never part of wrestling anymore, where it's like people have friends. The baby faces are all friends with each other. And so when you're going after the Von Erichs, it's not just the Von Erichs. When someone else needs to step up to help out, they're there. When the Freebirds are getting their butt kicked and need someone else to step up, they have someone there as well. And it's like, it's all great. It's shit that, sometimes bookers later on don't understand it. But, anyway, it is what it is. So then we get special correspondent Monica Hunter, who just asked wrestlers about Iceman Parsons. And it's 1983, and I'll sum it up like this. The faces loved him, the heels hated him. But in each situation, they still put over his talent. Kerry did an impression of the Iceman dance, and Hayes hit on our special correspondent. They did another quick King Kong Bundy promo reiterating that the boss has went to get Kamala. And then we go to the ring for our main event, Iceman Parsons versus the Great Kabuki, who has King Kong Bundy in his corner. Kabuki has already sprayed his mist on his own hands before the match has even begun. Iceman really cinched up on that headlock as the match began. Kabuki tried to fight back and got dropped with a pair of hip tosses. Kabuki took over with the titty twister. Not just the titty twister, by the way, a double titty twister. So we got two hands of peck. I wonder, I'm sure they teach that in the Orient. And mind you, I've watched a lot of Japanese wrestling again, and I don't, recall a lot of titty twisters in Japanese wrestling, but I'm sure it's there. Kabuki moved his nerve hold north and broke out the shoulder lean. Once again, Yokozuna would be proud watching these tapes. Kabuki threw a few chops, and if you had any question over whether or not he's actually being chopped, Iceman's chest is now covered in the green food coloring, green mist of Kabuki. They announced that the Kabuki Yatsu match will be a Dragon Shi match, or Dragon Shai match, which is just a kendo stick match with a fancy name. And one of the things they do here too, and they do it a lot, they never talk about next week. They don't say next week. Mercer will tell you next time around, which I guess covers them in case, due to editing, they do the match in 2 weeks instead of next week. They can say that this was the next time Kabuki was in the ring if that's the case. So Bundy's essentially managing Kabuki, but he's not at the ring apron or whatever. He's sitting patiently next to Mark Lawrence at ringside. I guess it would be too much to have him patrolling outside the ring. Kabuki jumps off the top rope with a chop to the head, which Iceman no-sold, as he is with several more chops to the head, which, by the way, just ridiculous, but whatever. Iceman made his comeback, and won, surprisingly, with she calls that the rear view. A little surprising, since Kabuki's been being built for weeks for this Dragon Shai match, and especially since we found out last week that, losses, by Akbar's men, they hurt Akbar's negotiations with OPEC. In case you have no idea what I'm talking about, check out last week's episode, because, oh boy, that was that promo from Devastation Incorporated's corporate headquarters. That was a promo of the year. So the show comes to an end now with a Bill Mercer interview with Iceman Parsons. Let's go to that right now.
King Parsons. Well, some of the wrestlers were saying you hadn't won the big one, but I think now you've proved everybody wrong. You beat the big man.
Well, man, they talks about everybody, but I beat everybody that ever put up against me. They said I wasn't nothing but a flash in a pan, I went out there tonight, I had one thing in mind, and that's winning. And the whole time I was out there winning, I was boogieing, getting down, doing everything I ever do with anybody I step in the ring with. Now, I'm going to leave y'all with this. I'm not bad. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not bad. But bad people don't mess with the Iceman, because the Iceman can get down and boogie, and I know y'all can dig it.
We can dig it. Thank you, Iceman King Parsons. Winner.
So, they mentioned Parsons may have finally won the big one, and I'm not sure why. I don't want to say they're burying Buddy Roberts, because Buddy Roberts is obviously not being buried. He's in the biggest, feud in, the territory. But it's like, Iceman beat Buddy Roberts. He beat him quickly and decisively. And they talk about how this is Parsons' first big win, which is just weird. But anyway, Iceman points out that, you can say he hasn't won the big one, but he's beaten everybody put against him. And he did it while boogieing. He did it while doing everything he normally does. And he finishes by saying he's not bad, but bad people don't mess with the Iceman. So that's going to do it for World Class this week. Next week, we have the Dragon Shai match. We have the world title match. It's a big show next week. And there's not a whole lot left to talk about. So that's going to do it. We're going to wrap this up here. Thank everybody for listening. Next